What's up, guys? How's it going? It is Matt here, so I'm coming at you guys with an instructional video. So we're going to be talking about grips and the thumbs forward versus the cross thumbs and when you can use the cross thumbs grip. So let's get started. If you guys remember a little while back, I specifically talked about the don't cross your thumbs video. If you guys remember that, I talked about the don't cross your thumbs video. In that video, I was specifically talking about when you're using the standing isosceles stance, which is the modern day stance that we're taught on a daily basis, which is the gun I'll be using is my M11A1. So it has been cleared part of the video. The standing, the isosceles stance is when your arms are straight out in front of you like this, or your body's center to the target, your sights are right out there. If you notice me, because I'm crossing down, I have to shift my head. This right here is called the isosceles stance, also known as the stance, just plain old standing stance. So don't ever cross your thumbs when you do an isosceles stance, a standing stance. We're going to talk about that again a little bit in here, but I'm mainly going to focus on when you can cross your thumb and when you kind of need to cross your thumbs. Now, in order to get into this, we got to talk about techniques and fundamentals, okay? So fundamentals through the years have always been the same. Fundamentals do not change, all right? So the fundamentals are side of picture, side alignment. You have to be able to have a good side of picture, side alignment. You need that front sight completely lined up with the rear sights, the top's level, equal amount of daylight on either side of it. You need hold control, okay? Hold control has to do with grip. It's about holding the gun in as straight as possible, because our human body, we're pumping blood, we're breathing, and it's constantly moving and shifting. We can't hold perfectly still. We're not stone, we're flesh bags, right? So you have to be able to have a good grip in order to manage that. So that's hold control. The next is trigger control. You have to be able to squeeze that trigger without moving those front sight front sight tips, whatever. The two most important fundamentals is front sight picture, or the side alignment sight picture, and trigger control. If you can't squeeze the trigger without moving that front sight tip, you're going to be throwing you around. So you can't have one without the other. Then that other fundamental is follow through. Okay, follow through is basically after you've pulled the trigger. So we're gonna do it real quick. So after you've shot, you fired, you pull the trigger, boom, you shoot, it resets, or you let the trigger reset, keeping those sight picture, side alignment lined up, focusing on that, and when the sights are ready, you squeeze the trigger again. You don't pull the trigger and drop. You don't pull it and kind of shift your body around and do it again. You aim, you keep those fundamentals up to par, you squeeze the trigger, you hold down the trigger, you focus on the front side tip, and you focus on the fundamentals so you can make another shot. That is follow through. The other one is natural point of aim, and this is a big one, all right? Your gun has to be naturally pointing in the right direction. Your body, your gun has to be pointing in the right direction. So for someone like me, cross-eye dominant, my natural point of aim is a little bit lined up, so I have to compensate with either my stance or with the sights, which means I usually have to drift my sights a little bit to do that. Basically what I mean is, as a cross-eye dominant guy, when I'm shooting like this, I have to shift my head like that. The two things I can do is shift my head into an uncomfortable position like this, or the other thing I can do is move the gun like this, which doesn't work because it throws off your natural point of aim. The other one is this way, but I don't like this technique either because it feels like I lose grip strength when I do that. So I have to find the balance, and that's when it comes to me drifting my sights. And that comes in, that's a whole other thing I did a video on that before. So, but when it comes to the actual stance, okay, there is no wrong stance. Honestly, there really isn't that much wrong. There's a couple wrong stances, but there's two main stances. That's the isosceles and the Weaver stance, okay? So I showed you the isosceles. Now the Weaver stance, which is a very popular stance, it's been used for a long time. A lot of people like Paul Harrell still use it today. There's some people that still prefer the Weaver over that. The Weaver stance is my right foot is now back, okay? My body is shifted a little bit, which shifts actually the natural point of aim. This arm is straight like this, and then this hand comes up here, and look what I'm doing with my thumbs, crossing my thumbs, but look at my left arm, okay? Look at my left arm, okay? So notice my left arm is bent. That is the Weaver stance, okay? So you have isosceles, thumbs forward, and Weaver, crossed it like that. Now, why did I do that? Why did I make that quick shift with my hands? And I'm going to explain that real quick. So when you're shooting a gun, the strongest part of our wrists, okay, the strongest part of our hand, what produces, the gun's flipping, all right, the gun's been flipping, is right here, the tendons that are in here. So you have to lock all the tendons in place. The best way to lock these tendons in place is shift your wrist forward like this, trying to get it as straight as possible, as in knife hand as straight as possible. You shift your hands down to the ground like that. So when the gun's up here like this, as a standing stance, you shift your hands down like that, and that puts your thumbs forward grip for the isosceles stance. putting it down, but this hand is pretty straight. It's pretty straight, and because of it, it helps reduce the flip. If you notice, this gap is gone. You want to fill up that gap completely so you see nothing in there. That is why you use the thumbs forward grip for that, because it helps lock those tendons in place. Now, let's try the cross thumbs grip on the isosceles stance. So let's try that real quick. So I got the isosceles stance, so this is that. Now watch what happens when I have to cross the thumbs. Watch, I'm gonna try to cross my thumbs now. Watch what this hand does. In order to cross the thumbs, I now have to shift my wrist and push it up like that to cross my thumbs. Which direction is my hands pointing? They're not pointing down, locking the tendons anymore. They're going straight in that direction right now. So when you're shooting, there's a lot more flip that's going to be coming out of it. That's why you see some people crossing their thumbs and they use a 9mm and things flipping a lot more than usual. Like, wow, that's got a lot of flip to it. That's because they're using the cross thumb grip and it unlocks those tendons, okay? And a lot of times they'll try to compensate by death gripping the pistol, which doesn't really help you in the long run in the first place. You got to hold it tight, but you don't hold it that tight, right? So now let's do the Weaver stance. So let's do the same thing with the Weaver stance. So I got the Weaver set up, okay? This is the Weaver stance right here. Make sure I'm in the camera. This right here is the Weaver stance. So I am set up right here. Now notice, what is the shape of my arm? This arm is going upwards. Now if you take a look at my wrists, once again, those tendons are locked in place with the thumbs down. Those tendons are completely locked in place and as straight as possible. So when I'm holding up here and I cross the thumbs, that does the same thing and it gives you that solid grip where actually, if you notice, I shift my hand a little bit farther down here, not quite teacup, but a little bit farther down here for the Weaver stance because that locks those tendons into place when you're doing it. Now let's try the thumbs forward grip. When you do the thumbs forward, what happens back here? And the Weaver, because this elbow's down, you now cannot see, there's a big gap, it's hard to see in the camera. My hand has to be farther forward on the actual grip in order to get the thumbs forward grip, which actually loses contact in here and also loses the locking section of this. So now the gun is going to flip when I have the thumbs forward and I'm trying to do the Weaver stance. I'm literally have to pinch it with my thumb. I don't have any grip on my support hand, and almost no grip, just in order to get it on that. Now, let me do the same thing while crossing the thumbs with the Weaver. And once in, this arm's straight, this one's bent. So my grip is the same right here. That gap is completely covered. That gap is completely covered. My wrist is facing downwards the way how it's supposed to be, which locks those tendons into place. This arm, my shooting arm is locked in this one because of the grip. The grip is better. My hand's completely on the pistol and the thumb is down, completely locking it, just like that. That is the only time that you want to use the thumbs forward grip, just like that when you're using the Weaver stance. It goes hand in hand. If you are using the isosceles stance, you need the thumbs forward grip. If you're using the Weaver stance, you need that crossed thumbs grip. Just like, it feels weird getting into it. I don't do it very often. You need just like that to have the same grip and set up so you have the same amount of contacts on the gun. You have to cross your thumbs. Otherwise, you lose. Your hand actually comes off the support of the grip, or your support hand comes off the grip. Now, if you don't believe me, go check out Paul Harrell, for example. Paul Harrell, great shooter, one of the best shooters I know. I don't personally know him, but one of the best shooters I know. He's a trainer. He does a lot of ballistic tests and stuff like that. He was a competition shooter, a Marine. Good dude. Now, what he does the Weaver stance. And if you watch his grip, if you take a close look at his grip, when he does the Weaver, his thumbs are crossed. Every time he does the Weaver, his thumbs are completely crossed like that because it is almost a requirement for the Weaver stance to cross those thumbs. With the Weaver stance, if you cross the thumbs, you keep that hold control. So that's when you use the cross thumbs versus the thumbs forward grip is the Weaver stance, okay? So Weaver stance, thumbs crossed, the isosceles stance, thumbs forward. Anyway, I hope this helped, guys. So if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about me. Remember, guys, it's our responsibility to take care of each other and protect each other. Peace.